Is about design, develop, and implement the YAC. Of course, here also I can represent in YAC or C program. So this program speaks in terms of C program. Same basic header files, standard IO and string. So here I have many cases. I have production E, which is turned into E plus T, or T, completely one production, T tending to T star F or F, and F tending to within brackets E or ID. And my parsing sentence is actually ID plus ID star ID. So this will be my string. So first thing is always get the input from the user, right? So here by this time I'm actually using a stack array, and for what action I'm doing, that is it a shift or a reduce, and I have two more character array. One is A and the other one is AC. We'll check it out. So yeah, this is function prototyping, I guess. So next is execution starts from the main program. I'm gonna print that grammar is this, this, and this. Enter some string. So here, E tending to E plus E, E tends to E star E, E tending to within brackets E, and within ID is actually not factored and not left factored. And you know about the topic of left factoring. Next is enter the input string. As you can see, the first thing is enter the input string. And once you enter the input string, get the value of A. That means in my A array, that is in your A array, I have this particular sentence. So here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 characters are actually there. So C is actually one particular integer variable. So C is holding what content? C is actually holding a value with respect to this. So 12 is the value, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 particular value will be present in the character count, which you can see. So the first thing is action. What is that action? The first, whatever the case is, you need to shift. Shift what? That's the case. So my input is ID plus ID star ID, and I'll just take a new one. Don't save. Yeah. So here I have a production, and I also have a string ID plus ID star ID. So I have this many case, and C value is how much? C value is actually 12. Count. Okay. So you should, one thing which you should know is every value is actually a character. Every value is actually a character. And the next case is, yeah. First thing is I have to use a shift character. That means what is that I need to shift? In my action, I have to take the shift. That means I have to put my first particular starting production, which is E, similar to the previous application or previous program, where we shifted the A. So even here, my value will be shifted. So I need to format it using some proper formatting. So stack input and action is what I'm actually printing. So stack input and action, and you should know that my act application will be using this particular case. Next is stack input action is what I have printed. So what do I have in the stack? For now, stack is also not initiated, and the stack is sorry, the other application which was my action, that was also not initiated with any values. So I have a for loop here. So here in this particular for loop, you should look into careful. You should be very carefully going through. So k equal to 0, I equal to 0, j is less than count. Remember, this is my condition here. My j value should be less than count usually. So what is my count? As I said, my count value is actually 12. Okay, so once I get into that, enter the input string. You're giving the input string shift value. Okay, here I am. So a of j is equal to I, and a of j plus 1 is equals to d. What is my j initially? J is 0. So what is this input? A refers to input, okay? So a of 0 is equals to I, and a of 0 plus 1, that is a of 1 is the ID. Of course, that is my case here. So this is my 0th location, and this is my first location. So initially j is here, j plus 1 is ID. Both are the same. If that is the case, then you come to the stack. So what do I do within the stack? Push whatever the value which you have in a of j to the stack of 0. So I value was 0, right? So here I have my stack. So stack of I value is what? Stack of 0. That means in with respect to 0, I have what? I have ID. I have ID. Next, one small case here. ID cannot be written. It's only one character. That means only I. Only I. And with respect to 1, it is D. Okay. Yeah. So I basically calculated it. So next is stack of what is I plus 2? I plus 2 is what? I plus 2 is 0 plus 2, that is 0. So that is 2. 2 will be now inserted with a null character. So this was 1, this was 2. And now I am inserting a null character. Okay. The next case is a of j will be made as empty. So a of j was what? A of j was 0. A of j plus 1 was D, right? A of 0 was I. A of 1 was actually this thing. I'll just make it much more clear. So I have 12 boxes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So here I have I, here I have D, and here you can see with respect to the input. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, in my case it is 8. So my C will be 8. Extremely sorry, because if you give the empty space also, you have to consider it. But here when I give with respect to the input string here, I haven't given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 exactly. So my C will be 8, and ID plus ID star ID. ID plus ID star ID. This is what exactly will be there. So here this is my array A, and this is my stack STK. My stack STK. And I also have another array which is of action, right? So my action is also there, ACT, as you can see, right? So ACT will also be straightly working on that also. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. Next, what happened here? So into the example program. Now A of j is also made as empty. A of j plus 1 is also made as empty. That means this I'll erase. So this is also erased, and this D is also now erased. Remember, I should always keep track of my values. So A of j is also done. A of j plus 1 is also done. Then I'm printing what? Stack. What exactly do I have on the stack? In the stack I have with respect to ID. Okay, basically nothing I have with the stack. Sorry, with ID, and I have only this thing. So anytime whenever it is printing, it also prints the dollar by default, right? As you can see, dollar. Okay, every time it prints a dollar, and for the first time I have a stack dollar with stack. What do I have with the stack? ID. Okay, so with stack I have ID, and one second. Yeah. So where did I go? With stack I have ID, and with A array, what do I have? With A array, I'm deleted with these two options. So this 2 is deleted now. So what is the next thing which I have? Plus ID star ID, plus ID star ID. That's what is actually shown here. Dollar ID plus ID star ID dollar. And also whenever you're printing, Here dollar is also by default I have enclosed into the case which will print that also. Okay, and yeah, action. What was the first action? First action was in action reduced to E. So what is the case here, which you see reduced to? Basically, that reduced to E was that shift of ID, is it? Okay, I'm looking in check. I'm sorry. Yeah, shift was with value, and that act will be shown here. So shift of ID, whatever the value as shown here. And then check. Check is one method which I'm looking for whether it is done or not. Do I get the success state or not? Of course. So now AC will string copy of reduce to E towards my new AC now, right? So my action will be having reduce to E. So here this action will be having reduced to E completely. So for now I'll show you R, E, D, U, C, E, and it goes on, right? Reduce to E something, right? So this reduce to E complete character of array is actually saved in action. So the new one is reduced to E is what I have. Next is Z is equal to, okay, this is one variable, Z is 0 and Z is should be less than C. C was what, 8. So 0 to 8, that case. So stack of Z, Z is 0, stack of Z is what, I, and stack of Z is what, D. Yeah, ID, I and D both should be there. So this condition is true, right? So I and D both are there. Stack of 0, I mean stack of Z, stack of Z plus 1. So stack of 0 and stack of Z plus 1 is D. So I and D both are there. So this condition is true. If that is condition is true, then you can say that stack of Z can be equal to E. Stack of Z can be equal to E. Now what I need to do, I need to erase this, and what am I doing? This particular Z array, this stack of Z particular array, I'm making it as E. So here, in other words, this ID I have reduced to E. ID to E. So next, what about this case? Z plus 1. Z plus 1 I'm making it as null character. Z plus 1 I'm making it as a null character, which is doing by this case. Okay, so if that is the case, print $%s. So what is this S? Stack. Next, what is this S? A. Then what is this AC? Which is yes. Why I came to this check? Because by default, by default, my check case is actually true. Why? Because I have an ID. So ID, whenever I have an ID, straight away you reduce it to E. So what I did, this particular case, what it did is it reduced that particular complete ID into E. Okay, so this condition is true. Now it comes to this particular case. So this, it got executed and it comes here. So by the time it comes here, it will actually be displaying the second case. So what I had, E, I had plus ID star ID dollar reduced to E. So even the second line is now displayed. So once it displays the second line, now comes the for loop. So Z is now made as 0. Is 0 less than 8? Of course, true. Now I'm checking, is my top of the stack is equals to E? Yes, it is E. And if it is plus, and if it is plus, then I have to work out with the case. It is not plus now. So this condition is false. Straight away come here. If my top of the stack is E, yes. If it is star, no. Because as you can see here, what is my top of the stack? E and null 0. Right? So this will also be not executed. This will also be not executed. And straight away it comes here. If top of stack is equals to open bracket and E and close bracket, no. Again it comes here. So check condition is now false. Then it comes to my for loop again. Now what all will be incremented? You tell me. So the things which are incremented is K will be incremented, I will be incremented, J will be incremented. That means my top of the stack will not be with respect to E. Now it will be on the next case. That means my top will be pointing to this case. Okay, so what was my top now? Top was null character. I hope you are following. The next case is once my K, I, and of course J was also incremented. J was previously 0 and J is now 1. That means k, I, j all are incremented. So j of 1, a of j is equals to I and d. No, straight away come here to the else part. So stack of I and a of j. Make this a of j to stack of I. What is that a of j now? A of j is equals to plus. Add that into a on the top of the stack. So what do you understand here? This plus will be copied over here. This plus will be copied over here within the stack. Okay, once you copy it over there on the top of the stack, make the I plus 1 as null 0, which is by default I have made it as null 0, and a of j will be equal to nothing. A of j will be equal to nothing. So a of j is nothing means I'm moving to the next case. Okay, this will also be taken off. So once you take this off, so e plus a will be having id star id. And what about with respect to the action here, right? So one more case here which you need to see. This action, what was the previous action? What was the previous action with respect to the stack that will be taken? And yeah, so stack A and action will be printed. So as you know, check was what previously action was what? Action was shift. Action was shift. Shift to symbols. Shift to symbols is what it will now. This was what the symbols which it actually displays. So what was the stack? The stack was plus E and plus. So E and plus will be displayed. E and plus will be displayed, and plus was deleted. So ID star ID dollar shift of symbols. Next E plus. So here the program what E plus says is I have a E on top of the stack, right? So once I come here, I'm going to check. So come to the check position. So is it I and D? No, my top of the stack is not I and D. So this won't be executed. Next is my top of the stack E plus E? Not. It is only E and plus. So is my top of the stack is equal to E star E? No, it is also not true. So it comes here. Is it Z equal to open E? No. So it comes to here. That means it has to shift again. It has to shift again. So none of the check conditions will work, and it comes to check here, and it comes out. So my incrementation of K, I, and J will also be incremented. So in other words, I am copying it down again here. So this I and D. So this case is this my I and D? Of course, yes. So next what happens? This I will also be taken off. D will also be taken off. So where will that I and D go? I and D will come towards the stack, and here this I will be printed, and this D is over here, and the next case will be made as null 0. So now my top will be incremented to this case. So next what happens is I'll display this completely E plus ID. E plus ID. So I'm displaying that E plus ID. E plus ID star ID. Because why star ID? Because everything was taken off. I have star and ID. So once you have star and ID, so shift will be the option. Sorry, shift of symbols will be there, and we shifted it. So next it is updated to shift of ID. So shift of ID. So next E plus ID is what I have. So E plus ID. So when it comes to the code here, what E plus ID is what I have printed. So go to check. So check. Once we come to the check, we have that stack of Z and stack of Z plus 1 is equals to ED. So ID. So stack of Z was what? Z was 2, right? Incrementing the value. So this I and D will be reduced to what? Will be reduced to E again. Will reduce to E again. So here what will the case be? Now the value will be E. Okay. So again, once you come here, again it comes here. It's checking if this my top of the stack, is it E plus E? Of course, now it is E plus E. E plus E. Now what it needs to do? What it needs to means stack of Z will be equal to J. Stack of Z will be equal to stack of Z will be equal to E. Stack of Z plus 1 will be equal to null and null. So basically it is coming here. This E, this plus, and this E, everything will be taken off, and this will be my E. And what do? I print the whatever the contents. So now what is the case which we have done? We have reduced it to E. E star ID dollar, reduce it to E. Similarly, what is the new symbol which I see here? Star. Push that star into the stack. So once you put it, you take off the value over here. So you print it E star ID. So E star ID, that's what you see here, E star with ID. So shift the symbols is what I update with the action. So once you shift the symbols, yeah, always remember, whenever we did that case, I is reduced to I minus 2. Okay, so I minus 2, why? Because previously my stack was here. So this stack will be -1 and -2 will come back to this case. Always remember. Then my top has been printed to star. I forgot to explain you that. Why? Because pointing the pointed values is also very important here in this case. So what do I have on top of the stack? E star, and what do I have with an array? ID, and now with respect to the action, whatever the action which it was, so E star ID. Next I come here, I check this value, it is a false value. So again I come to this for loop. So I check here, is it my top is I and D? No. So I come here, get the values from the A of j. So what do I have in A of j? I and D. So once you have I and D, delete this, and insert the I value and D value here. So next what happens, I print it. So what do I have to print? E star ID, and I have nothing here. In other words, it is just a dollar. So E plus E star ID, E star ID and dollar. So shift will be the action. So once I see the ID, what I need to do? Once I see the ID, what is the thing which I need to do? Once it is an ID, I need to reduce it, right? So sorry, here when you check it, I need to reduce it, I and D. So I and D will be made as E, right? And again I'll be putting it. So what will be reduced now? This I and D will be taken off. I and D will be taken off. So that will be made as E here, right? So this will be a null again. So E star ID, and within the same case here, when it checks E star ID on top of the stack, yes. So E will be 0. I mean, stack of Z will be made as E, and again 2 null cases. And so the complete state here is E star E will be actually reduced to E, and of course I will be -2, and my top of the stack will be E. Okay, so once you have it in E here, so yeah, where was that? So E star E, yeah. So once you are done here, so this check part will be done. So again, I come back to this case of for loop here. So this was a wrong here. So next is whatever I see with respect to the ID over there, whatever I have, I'll be actually reducing it to E. So E star E will be reduced to E, and that's where the application will actually get terminated. So I guess you people have considered the case, and I hope this is how the shifted reduce parsing will be done.